Hey everyone, Once Bitten here. So there's a new trend going around in the YouTube Warhammer community that I think is really great, and I'm posting this video kind of as a response to that and to be able to participate in that. But basically, there's some channels that really make an effort to promote interaction among the channels, and Lorian did a great job of instigating all this and creating the Warhammer YouTubers Google Plus page. I think went a long way for that. But Sustainable Centers really kind of kept it up, and Vince Venturella and Materium and the boys, Mick1 Gamer, Skaven AZ, William Page. There's a lot of people doing this, but they just kind of post videos talking back and forth. I think it's fantastic. I don't normally get involved, and it's not because I'm above the fray or anything else. It's just a lot of times I feel like I don't have anything worth saying. But Vince Venturella posts a topic of the week where he invites other people to respond to this one topic. I think it's a fantastic idea, and the topic of this week is battle reporting, and that's kind of my thing, so I thought I would respond to it. So thanks, Vince, and here are my 2 cents. So, yes, I post a lot of battle reports. So first off, how do you do it? How do you take pictures and all that? How do you put it together? Well, you can't make a battle report, of course, without some kind of medium. I take still pictures. I don't like the video reports. I do try to always start off by asking my opponent if it's okay. And I'll say something along the lines of, hey, if it's okay with you, I'm going to be taking pictures, and later on I'm going to create a battle report and post it on the internet. Is that all right? And I've never had anybody say no to that. I've had one guy ask me not to take pictures and do a report, but he and I'd made plenty of reports with him, and it was just kind of a one-off thing. Even in tournaments, I haven't had anybody complain about that. Yeah, I think the thing, if people are sensitive to it, it has to do with time. So if it's, especially in a tournament, if time's a concern, I've seen people just kind of, you know, be a little bit nervous about, is your picture taking going to slow down our game? And I think that's actually very valid, because if you watch my reports, you know that I'm very sensitive to time. I've had way too many tournament games not finish. So I would say that if you're going to be making reports, one, you need to make sure that when you take pictures, you do it very quickly. And two, you need to speed up the rest of your game so that all in all, you're carrying your weight, so to speak. So the way I try to do that is I take pictures during set periods of time. I tell my opponent, don't let me slow you down. Go ahead and do your thing, and I'm just going to take pictures. The only time I'm going to ask you to wait is after deployment. It'll only take 30 seconds, and because I want to take pictures of deployment, and it takes several pictures to get that done, and yada yada. After that, nothing ever takes more than just a picture or two, and I don't need my opponent to wait for me. So I take a series of pictures after initial deployment. During the magic and shooting phase, I usually do not take pictures unless something significant happens. Like if a spell goes off and it kills 2 halberdiers out of 40, I'm probably not even going to show it. It just doesn't matter. I'm not trying to document every little thing that happens in a game. I'm trying to convey overall these are the significant things that happened. But if something significant does happen, I will take a picture. And usually I'll take a particular kind of picture, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then I always take a picture after each combat, not just to tell the storyline of what's going on, but also to remind me of what's going on. So when I do take pictures, and you'll notice this in my reports, I think. So when I'm taking deployment pictures, I start off I hold the camera up high, I aim it down, I take a picture of the whole board, and then I start, getting more close-up pictures so you can see where the characters are and stuff like that. So when I hold the camera up and I take a picture downward on the board, I call that my reference point. So after every turn, I always take that same picture, so that if somebody wanted to, we could actually put those pictures together, and you could just see turn by turn the ebb and flow of the game. So I think it's important to have that. So I see some people, they'll take a picture from directly over the board, and their next picture will be from the side of the table, and the next picture will be from somewhere else. I'm like, well, somebody has to really be paying attention to be able to put that together in their mind of what's actually going on. I think if you're telling the story, you need to have that reference point, that same point of view every time to show the viewer what's going on. But then I think it's important to take action shots. So if there's a combat, get the camera in close, especially if they're two well-painted armies, and snap a picture like that. If my Hellblaster volley gun shoots a unit and really damages it, I might get the camera down there so you see the Hellblaster at the very bottom of the picture, and you see that other unit in the background, and then I might take a second picture of the other unit showing that half of them are dead or something like that. It's kind of the action shots. They don't take too long to take. When you're making your report, you don't have to dwell on them, but I think that it goes a long way for making an interesting report. I would say that during a game, I'm taking 60 to 80 pictures. I think that's pretty normal for me. Pictures during a game. They don't all get used. Sometimes, like I'll take a picture and I can tell like my opponent moved his hand through the picture and it's going to make things blurry, so I'll just snap a second one. So if I have 80 pictures, it's usually because I have a bunch of pictures like that. I'll have pictures in there like if something weird happens, I'm going to take a picture to try to remind myself, but the picture alone may not be enough for me to remember, especially if I'm playing in a 5 or 6 game tournament. So I might take a second picture where I'll hold up like two fingers in the picture in front of in front of the unit I'm taking a picture of. That'll never make the report. But when I see that, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what that was all about. I mean, something weird like that. I would say that when making a report, and this is the advice when I made my very first battle report, and I'll talk about this later, but I did it based on Vol SC's style. I still say that I imitated his style. And he actually left me feedback on it. And his feedback was, you had this opening picture and you talked for like 5 minutes. He said it very nicely, but I've taken that to heart. I don't think you should ever have too much time on one picture, and it's hardest on your opening picture because you're trying to go through all the units and what everybody had. You're telling the story behind the game and all this kind of stuff. And I would say, but it makes for a bad report. And sometimes I still do that. But for the most part, I would say, don't let it sit still. Take an overview picture. Get close-ups of every unit. And so when you're doing your report, you're popping right through them with maybe 5 or 10 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds per slide. And let your viewers' eyes be moving on and on and on, and they feel like they're engaged in a story. They're not just sitting there listening to you drone on with the same picture there. And when I say it like that, I'm talking to myself. Certainly. All right. So when the pictures are done, I get home. When I get the time to, I plug my I take pictures using my iPhone. I used to use a camera, a nice camera, and I had blurry pictures all the time. My iPhone. And before that, in a Galaxy S3, they both take great pictures without very many being blurry. So I plug the phone into my computer, I upload the pictures, then I open up Keynote, and I use a Mac, by the way, so Keynote's kind of like Mac's version of PowerPoint. And what I used to be able to do is I could highlight all my pictures and drag them over into the area where the slides are in Keynote, and it would create a slide for every picture, and the picture would encompass the whole slide. So it would take like 3 seconds. Now, Keynote upgraded, and I put that in quotes, upgraded their software, and you can't do that anymore. So I have to create 70 slides, and one at a time I have to click on a picture and drag it over, put it on the slide, and then move it to make sure it's centered. And it is really tedious and takes about 10 or 15 minutes. For something that used to take 3 seconds. And it's not fun, so that sucks. Really mad at Keynote for doing that. But anyway, so I do that. Now, I'll say as an aside, I have used iMovie before. And the big difference is, if I use Keynote, I put all the pictures there. When I start recording, I'm going from end to end. If I make a mistake, I've got to start all the way over. I think you can start and stop within Keynote, but I've had it screw up the videos before when I've done that. So for the most part now, I'm talking through it all. And so I'll make plenty of mistakes in my reports, and I don't go back and correct it because it's just not worth the time. And I have people laugh at me about that. People I know that I play, they're like, man, you said this, it was totally wrong. I'm like, yeah, and I caught it later, but whatever. It's not worth it to me. Now, if you use iMovie, you record it one slide at a time. So if you ever make a mistake, you just have to re-record that slide. See, it's a lot better that way. But the overall process is 5 times longer, and it's just not worth it to me. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just once I populate all the slides with the pictures, I do very, very minor work. Let's say I usually know what the units are, so I can go through deployment and talk about the units without any notes on the screen. I usually put character builds in print so that when I'm going through it, I don't have to take so much time and read off what everybody has. I can just kind of say these are their builds, and if people want, they can pause the video and read them. And I will sometimes read the builds to out in the report if I feel that it's important, that it's significant, it helps the report and all that. But I don't think you have to cover every little detail. I think what's more important is flow to the report. So I think that's the balance you need to find, is what level of detail and what kind of flow you need. So what have I learned from doing battle reports? Probably a lot, but the thing that comes to mind most is that what I think is bad luck during a game often isn't bad luck. There are plenty of times in games when I'm playing and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've never ever had this kind of bad luck before. And, whatever. Then I get back and I'm doing the report and I'm like, yeah, there was probably some strings where the dice rolls seemed to go against me, but there were times when the dice rolls really went for me. But what I noticed a lot of times in reviewing all the pictures and trying to remember what was going on and trying to remember what I was thinking and what I was trying to do, that I find that I make so many mistakes. So personally, I take a lot of risks, and I see that a lot in doing the report, where when I'm in the game, I make the decision, I move on, the dice go against me, I'm like, oh, that was bad luck. But in retrospect, it wasn't bad luck as much as you took a chance, it didn't pay off, and it turned against you. So that's the biggest thing I learned. I mean, I also think that I know the rules a lot better because when I misplay rules, people comment on it. So I think that's been very helpful. Anyway, yeah, that's the biggest thing that comes to mind. Preferences when I watch videos. I have to admit I don't watch many, and it's just because I don't spend a lot of time painting, and I don't spend a lot of time just sitting here giving my full attention to the computer. And if I watch a video, you are getting my full attention. So I watch some. My strong I is for them to be short, like 20 minutes. When I see one that's 45 minutes an hour, I just don't even start. I don't have time for it. And if I'm painting, I don't want to watch a battle report. I'll listen to a paint-a-sode, I'll listen to a podcast. A battle report, I want to see what's going on, and I don't feel like I can do that well when I'm painting. So, yeah, I think mine, when I'm really in a good groove, they're between 20 and 22 minutes, and lately I've noticed they've been 26 minutes, and I don't think the extra 4 minutes is making my videos better. I think it's just me not being as tight in my narrative. So, yeah, my strong preference is about 20-minute mark. Sorry about that. I populated my slides and forgot that was in there. I mentioned before Vol SC from Australia. He was awesome. He doesn't play Warhammer Fantasy anymore. He was great. He was my inspiration. I copied him, and I think a lot of the YouTube battle reporters have copied me, but it's not really me, it's him. So I give him all the credit. He's my inspiration. The new channel, I think, if I'm just going to pick one, I think there's a lot of great content providers out there. I think William Page is doing a great job. I'm especially happy with his Warhammer wrap. He puts out weekly, which he and I both admit was my idea. I just didn't want to spend the time doing it. I am so thrilled that he's doing it. He basically, in 5 minutes, reviews what happened in the last week in terms of Warhammer YouTube world, and you can check that out real quick, and you can decide what you want to go watch, and it's absolutely fantastic. So this is my last slide. So I think the most important thing when creating a battle report is that the viewers want a story, and there's a lot of ways you can make it a story, and I don't think that all of mine do this perfectly well, but I think my better reports do. So there's a lot of ways to do a story. One, you can do a narrative report. I know that Materium focuses on this a lot. It's not really my thing, where you actually kind of tell the battle report as if you were in the Warhammer world. So you're not really focusing on strategy, you're focusing on the fluff. And I think there's a niche for that. And I think that's one way to create a story. Some ways that I've created stories is in my list development. So I'll come up with a list, and in doing the report, I'll kind of talk about my choices and my rationale for making those choices. And then as I play games, I will tweak that list a little bit, game after game after game. And every time I do, I'll talk about what changes I made and why I made those changes. And so I think some viewers like seeing, not just in one video, but seeing the progression of your list over several videos. Some of my most popular reports are tournament reports, and that's where you're not only talking about what's going on in the game, but how is it positioned within the larger tournament, and what are you trying to accomplish, and how are you doing at the end of those games. A lot of times, especially if I'm on the top tables, I'll keep track of how many points I have, what table I'm at, and I think it builds a little more excitement. I think the viewer can get into the pressure of the situation a little bit better. I think similar to list development, there's also just army development, and that could be your expertise in using an army, or just the painting of an army over time. So I know that if you're a long-time viewer, when I first started posting my Bretonnian battle reports, you'd see that I didn't have many models, a lot of them were unpainted, and then over time you saw knight by knight, just one at a time, getting painted. It's actually kind of cool to see over time, and I think people kind of like that. I think also over the course of a couple years, people saw me playing Bretonnia and saw that I became a much better general of that army as time went on. And I think as you make your reports, it's not like you spend a lot of time focusing on that, but you talk about it. Again, you talk about your thought processes, you talk about your decisions, and people can see that development over time. Now, I think one of the easiest and best ways to create a story for your reports is use retrospect to your advantage. So when the game's over, you know what happened in the game. But your viewer, when you start the report and you're starting at the beginning of the game, your viewer doesn't know any of that. So if something really epic happened, you can actually start building up to it from the very, very beginning. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a narrative format, so-and-so on your side is thumbing his nose at somebody at the other side. It's not like that. But you can talk about, how things are being set up and the significance of things, and that way whenever this epic thing happens later in the game, it just feels more epic in the context of the overall report. So I think that is probably my favorite way to try to make the report more of a story. And then lastly, I would say act like you're excited. There's some reporters out there that just do a really great job of being excited about the game, about Warhammer in general, about whatever. And I know that sometimes when I haven't been excited, my reports aren't as good. I've seen other reports where I think the people were the battle reporter was perhaps a little self-conscious in creating the report. They came across as sounding like they were trying to be really low-key and cool, and they didn't sound exciting. Like they were excited, and it didn't make me excited to watch it. So I would say certainly act like you're excited. So anyway, that's it. That's what I have. Thanks, Venturella, for opening up this topic. Talk to y'all later.